Essentially, the 12 countries, if it's agreed to, are agreeing to allow a corporation to directly sue that government for anything that undermines a corporation's ability to make future profits. So those would be things like child labor laws, minimum wage laws, pension requirements that a company has to pay into a pension fund.
Buy America.
Environmental standards. If a company dumps toxic waste next to your kid's school and it's going to cost them money and eat into their future profits, then they could sue your county or your school board or your county government or your city government or your state government or the United States government, because that's going to impinge upon their ability to make future profits.
So
and the courts that set up to oversee this are made up of 3 corporate attorneys that take a leave of absence from their corporate job to serve on this court. So it's the Supreme Court of the United States will no longer be the Supreme Court. It will be the court that is subordinate to these corporate international bodies that are set up by the TPP.
Yeah, so these independent corporations essentially are going to have more power than our government.
Right. The criteria for bringing a lawsuit is that your future profits could be impacted by a law. And if that law costs them $300 million to clean up a dump site where they've dumped radioactive waste or pharmaceutical waste or any kind of chemical carcinogen, the cost of cleaning it up, they can backtrack right against the government that imposed the law and recover those losses, which means taxpayers will end up paying for it.
Another thing really is the tobacco labeling. That's been a really big one too. There are countries in this agreement that are really upset because initially the United States was going to go along with the labeling laws in these other countries, like I think it's New Zealand. They were really upset because they don't want to target teenagers to smoke, and the tobacco industry has actually insisted that they are definitely not going to put any restrictions on tobacco labeling in these other countries.
So this would allow them to sue the government for, say,
protecting the people.
Protecting the people and the environment, or anything, basically.
They can do whatever they want.
Like NAFTA really only involves Latin America, the United States, and Canada. So under NAFTA, these they're suing governments already. But there's a lot of other countries involved here, and it's actually like 40% of the world's economy that is involved here. So it's huge.
Yeah, which is mostly because of the United States and Canada. The other countries are relatively small, but yes, 40% of the world's trade.
But that's the thing. I mean, it comes back to the corporation stacking the deck, because these are the laws that can't get passed if they're public. So they have to keep it secret, all bound up in this international treaty, and then they have the tribunal courts, and then when you go to court, it's the corporate attorneys making the decision. So it's stacking the deck against us, and it also gives.
By buying the laws.
What we haven't talked about is, people have heard about Citizens United. A lot of people are more aware of what it means, but if Fast Track goes through and TP goes through TPP and TAFTA, then corporations will have the same rights as other nations. So they're going to go from personhood, having the same rights as other people, to having the same rights as nations, and come in, open up shop in a new nation and challenge the laws there and make it to their liking. But it's a done deal that they're just hoping to wrap up, and they don't want us to know about it, because if we do, then we've stopped them in the past. So we just have to keep up pressure. And then earlier when you were talking, we feel good that we're going to be able to stop fast track. We've got a lot of signatures. We've got a lot of momentum. We're here meeting. You know, it's spreading across the country. But NAFTA got through with the fast track legislation that led to NAFTA got through with just one vote. So even though we feel good in that, we can't let up at all because it could come down to just one vote. And for me, it's just disheartening that more and more people aren't jumping on it.
Well, with this one in particular, a lot of people just don't know about it.
Yeah, well, that's intentional.
And when you bring it up, like, how do you bring up TPP in like 30 seconds or less? To explain the urgency, to explain the next steps and the impact and that. I would just use independents are taking over the world. Just what Harriet said here, because that's what hooked me actually, was that phrase right there, that they're able to take over the world with this.
And people are always talking about deficits, you know, and you know, a big part of the deficits is because we don't have good jobs. They've all gone over to these other countries where they don't have good labor standards, and you know, that's a big part of it is going to be job loss too. And a lot of times you can really influence a legislator, I think, by saying, "Hey, we've had 20 years of NAFTA. We know what it's done to the jobs in this country. Instead of factories, we have warehouses now." You know.
Yeah, another thing on the workings of it. In the Constitution, it states that the Constitution, U.S. laws, and treaties shall be the law of the land. So a treaty, if this is passed, U.S. laws will have to change to conform to what's ever in this treaty. And that's why the founders required a two-thirds majority and the advice and consent of the Senate, because they didn't want something to come in that would supersede U.S. law. And that's what treaties do. Because if you make an agreement with another country, then you're binding your whole country to that agreement. And the Senate wanted that. The founders wanted that to be extremely difficult to do. And they also wanted the Constitution to be extremely difficult to amend. That's why they put in the two-thirds majority in the House and the Senate, just to make a proposal to change the Constitution, and a 4/5 majority to get it passed. So how can a simple law passed by 50% plus one in the House and Senate override the constitutional requirement for a 4/5 majority to make that change, or a two-thirds majority to pass an international treaty? This is difficult to do for a reason. And fast track all came up under the Nixon administration. It's been used before, but its constitutionality has never been challenged. And we need to fight this thing, I think, on that basis.
Yeah.
We need a couple of senators and a couple of congressmen that are going to drag this thing out forever and challenge the constitutionality of the law. One senator can put a hold on the fast track proposal. They put a hold on it. Let it sit. Yeah, but because the fast track is a regular bill. It's just a bill that goes way beyond the authority of what any law should be allowed to do.
The problem is you're not going to get anybody on the Democrat side to put a hold on it, because that would be going against the precedent, party precedent. So it would have to be a Republican to put a hold on it, or an independent.
I think it's a really sad commentary that our elected officials that swear an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States. It's the only oath in the Constitution is the presidential oath, and he swears to execute the office of the United States President and to preserve, defend, and I don't have the exact words in here, but to defend the Constitution. And every public employee, House or Senator or Judge, they've all taken a similar oath to defend the Constitution. And fast track is a complete end run around the Constitution. And I think I don't think that there's not a single Democrat that would fight it, but it's a sad commentary if that were true.
You don't think a single Democrat?
No, I believe that there are some senators
What about Elizabeth
and
Warren?
congressmen.
Elizabeth Warren has really come out strongly against
Well, and
TPP.
Sherrod Brown, too, is an independent.
No, I think there's several that would stand up,
Yeah.
and I hope that we're right about that.
So they're just not our senators.
You know, the thing is, too,
So, I mean, I was discounting Bill
Yeah.
Nelson, who
Yeah,
doesn't
I mean,
sound like he...
it's easier for a senator to stop it in the Senate, but several people in the House could drag it out for quite a while, too. It doesn't need to be introduced one day and voted on 2 or 3 days later.
Yeah.
It could be drug out for many months in the House, and literally, I mean, I don't see how it could be gotten through the Senate with a few senators that really stood on their principles and said, no, I'm defending the Constitution. This is an unconstitutional bill.
Are you-
Never get to the floor.
Are you guys focusing on the House right now or the Senate?
We are focusing on the House because the national leadership of this movement does not believe that we can win on a 50% plus one vote in the Senate. Sad to say. That
Because of partisanship.
I won't speculate on the...
too much money in politics.
Yeah, money in politics is definitely a big issue, but I won't say that it's just because of
I think
partisan
because
politics.
the Senate, you know, they're in office for 6 years, you know, their terms are for 6 years. And, you know, with the House members, you have 2 years, you know, so it's like, yeah, they have...
The longer we drag it out, the less likely it is that that fast track can be voted on. Because the closer we get to election, the more pressure there is going to be on those representatives to stand up for the Constitution that they took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend.
The other thing is, you know, when fast track was first implemented, it was about trade, you know. Now, it's not really about trade. It's really about a corporate takeover of the world's resources, basically. And, you know, so it's, you know, shouldn't even really apply, because it's not about trade. You know, 4 chapters and dealing with trade and the rest not, so.
I don't think, given the